Welcome back to another episode of Full Circle with me, Onyx. And let's get into it. The last video was basically on how to reclaim your power. Um, the simple method. It's the method I've taught as meditation. It's the method that I've used for over 20 years. And more and more and more, um, I find how simple, universal it is, how anyone and everyone can access it without having to give up their religion or buy into new dogma and beliefs. It's just a different perspective. So, a lot of my goal with working with magic is to the take all the fluff out of it, you know, I don't want to add sparkles. I don't want to add a religion or a faith or a belief system. Life is that's kind of not the reason why is because all that will just limit you. And we'll get into it a little bit. I was driving with one of my dear friends, and she was like, I want, she's like, I feel witchy and I feel wizardy. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Yin yang, uh, balance the hexagram, the six-pointed star. Balance your male, your female, your playful side and your serious side, your heavenly, angelic, and your sinful, mortal, demonic self. Like, yeah, there's room for play. There's room for jokes. There's room and necessary on the path of magic, on the path of spirituality and wisdom, truth, all these avenues, that all paths are one. Um, but then I was like, well, what is your definition of a wizard? What is your definition of a witch? And she was a little bit kind of unclear. And I think a lot of us are because we're getting a lot of different perspectives. And so the line can become very unclear. But you then also have to choose that for yourself. So one of my other videos, Pop Magic or Pop Wizards, um, all this culture that we get, all these ideas, uh, you know, with cartoon shows, movies, Disney Channel about magic and wizards, and paints an idea in our head, like maybe they have wands or a lightsaber, maybe it's about good and evil, maybe it's about a coven, you know, or blood sacrifices, or everything has to be demonic, so we get from Grimm's fairy tales way back when all the way up to modern time, we get a very distorted experience and understanding of what witches, witchcraft is, what wizards are, you know. And so I leave it up to you to create your own narrative, your own myth, your own living um, experience, knowing that you are the creator. But I explained a little bit about archetypes, and psychologically, women are closer to the earth, and the goddess is closer to the earth. So that includes life and death. That would include the spirits that are coming in and going out, things ruled by the moon. That would include herbs, plant medicine. And so it's not really a stretch of the imagination that you're going to experience the goddess. And a lot of the goddesses over time were agricultural goddesses. They ruled over forests, they ruled over harvest and farmlands, and it was all about fertility and work and keeping it alive. So there was a death element to goddesses. Um, where male gods were kind of traditionally more seen from the sky, from the stars, laying down the law. And so it kind of seemed to rule higher consciousness. And so it got into high magic, where you're not concerned about how do I put food on the table, or how do I keep my child alive. That is in the domain of witchcraft and folk magic. gather these herbs, tie them in the left corner, or gather some goat's blood and paint it on your door to keep the angel of death away. See how like earthy that is and how much you're doing. You're working with plants and animals, and these remedies can work for all the way up the ladder and all the way down. But when it starts getting symbolic, when it starts getting psychological, when it starts about bringing knowledge from another dimension here, you know, like technology, mathematics, and higher education, it starts being assigned or attributed to the Mel principle, which is the sky god. So we even see that in our mythologies. So wizards tend to symbolically represent the elements and the angels and the beings through casting of circles, symbols, calling directions, magical, like more like incantations and things you have to learn, like ritual movements specifically. And so that's really, in my mind, the distinguishing difference between the two. And I've made videos in the past about differences of, are you a magic bender? And you're not even a witch or a wizard, but you're a bender. Are you a borrower? Do you somehow have to siphon magic and siphon, from magical beings or others? And like, so benders just kind of know how to channel and bend flows of magical currents to their will. And obviously, magic users are the ones that siphon and take from others uh, to then add to their power, or sometimes they'll do a nice 2-for-1 special. You're the one with the psychic abilities, you don't know it, I'll give you a reading and I'll give myself one and you one and you'll pay me. So we kind of get that into shady magic. And so that actually happens a lot, where we get borrowers of magic. So if you have to gain the power or the assistance from a spirit, a unicorn, an elemental being, a fairy, an alien, a god, you're probably more into the borrowing of magic. So we see in comic books, Constantine injected himself with demonic blood to then gain some power to work or bind or deal with demons. So he had to add unto himself. And so he borrowed slash really stole magic. So in the darker arts, there's a lot of stealing of magic, borrowing of magic. When it has to do with taking magic and power of others, you can become very good at so you don't have to look at it as a derogatory, shaming way, but it's nice to know where you get your power from. And some people are born with the power. They just naturally have the connection. They may be magical themselves or have magical bloodlines flowing through them. They could have a long history, whether they know it or not, of working with a powerful god or a goddess. And so things can be influenced through them, or even the radiant energy of that being could be actually passed on through the bloodlines. You know, these bloodlines aren't exactly specific to anatomy and physiology. We can consider bloodlines of the soul. There is a pattern and imprint. So, in my example, even though it usually, like I would say, 100% of the time, it's going to somehow line up with your biology. But I naturally had a goddess who was working with me and then made herself known and is directly tied to my bloodlines, but I didn't know. I was adopted, in a US transplant. I had no knowledge of my genes, of my genealogy, of my background. That all kind of came later, but it was the goddess came forward, worked with me for many years, and near the end of that time spent together, naturally, no invocation needed, uh, the ability to access my own DNA, my own blood, my own body, and understand that link, happened. So over time, a lot of things are revealed. Okay. We kind of went on a tangent, but we're really going into, we're now going to separate the wannabes from the actuals. Okay. And really, my videos have kind of been about that. And we're going to touch upon balancing through the elements. So if you form a cross of equal arms, there you go. We noticed that the cross intersects. And so we've talked about the power of now and being centered. We've now are working the crossroads. You have created the crossroads within yourself by choosing to be centered. If you can become the master of the crossroads, you have now found your key to start to reality warp, okay? Or access the quantum level of reality in more popular terminology. Notice we're always talking about the same thing, but what terminology opens doors instead of closes doors? What terminology doesn't trick you, or I should say trigger you, but inspires you? Opens up the curtains and lets the light in. So in some of the videos maybe that I've made or other people made, you might need to adapt the terminology to have these patterns that are incongruent or programs that don't exactly align, that are incompatible, compatible. So you are actually that software that can become a universal translator of languages, codes, and symbols. That's up to you to now understand that. So apparently these last two videos have a lot of chunks of information there for you that I invite you to pause, maybe watch those fast-paced movements about integrating languages. Anyways, let's move into this. That cross I was talking about. So, I'm thinking, how is it that I have access to the archetypes? How is it? So, the most fundamental thing of magic forever that will separate you from wannabes to the ones that have the power. All paths are one, and the only way out is in. It is that inner temple that you need to create. So, I'm just straight up, here it is, brick and mortar, the very basics. You are it. Yeah, it's a great idea, but it needs to be actualized through you being able to hold space for yourself, and that will include your environment eventually, and maybe even all of your students or all the members of your coven. You need to be able to hold space for yourself first. You need to be then have the strength to hold space for others. That's when you're able to have a very well working coven, if you're going to go that direction. So that's just for some of you, not all of you. I'll throw that out there. Anyways, I'm just saying, all this work that you do for yourself can then be expanded on in transforming your reality, your world, and inspiring and influencing other people as well, creating the world that you want to live in. So hence you'd be part of the evolution. Anyways, so being able to hold space for yourself requires focus and practice. So make grounding and centering the most important thing you do every day, or however you do that within your lifestyle, and understand you're learning how to build your inner temple, and in a weird way, your outer temple. The outer of the inner would be your aura. So the mastery of working with your energy, the mastery of being able to summons and reject or give license to depart of spiritual energy, of entities, for you to have them manifest on your inner psychological screen, to see them within you or to project them outward and to see them about you all happens through the power of finding that center, finding your inner temple, finding that key hole to open the door. So, your chakras are a great location for those keys, for those doors, those portals. So, besides chakras being vortexes, they're also portals, they are doors. And you might be surprised that one of the chakras acts as a better magical portal to your inner temple than another. So, and you might find you have a few, and you might find those doors open up different levels within your magical temple. And I'm telling you, this isn't exactly psychology because your inner temple, I can't really say how you're going to experience it. There's many levels, and you could have many types of inner temples. Um, but you'll know, you'll know when you got it, because you will have access to the crossroads. You won't need Hecate. You won't need Papa Legba to grant access to be that intermediary guide for you, because you will now have access. So now that you have access to this, now that you found the door or the window, you can open it up and close it, hopefully at will. You might want to practice. And so we're looking at fundamental principles that make magic work, that you can use for protection, that you can use for warfare if you choose to go there, that you can use for your ascension. But basically, a temple is a place where you would invite the divine, whether it's profane or whether, it's of the light. Who knows what your intention is? But it needs to be a container. You need to be able to contain it. There needs to be a barrier, a definite line of here and there, within, without. And so the more you practice and work it, it more automatically happens. The more you move into wholeness, which I think is really cool. When I think of wholeness, I think of a perfect circle, unbreakable. But recently I also thought of an egg. When I thought about me being whole, mind, body, and spirit, I thought of a golden egg. It just naturally popped into my mind. Um, but anyways, whether you choose to use your creative imagination to guide you to the point of door access, temple access, go right ahead. I will let you know with imagination, besides that cueing your psychology in the direction that you will it of your creations, be flexible. Let that inner psychology, these unseen aspects of you, alter things. So a good example is, I would really like a red door, and go down this hall and enter my sanctuary or my temple. But then you notice the door keeps wanting to turn silver, or a symbol keeps wanting to appear. Allow it. Or the size of it changes, kind of like a dream. Allow it. This allowance, this morphing, it actually helps you move across the bridge or into the other realm. It's helping you access the crossroads, and you are crossing it. That's the point. So people get stuck when they overwork their art, when they get too in control of it. People get stuck in shaman journeys of moving through other dimensions. People get stuck in magical battles when they get too involved in it. Whether it's too much ego, whether it's too much personality, energy, we have a tendency to try to overcompensate. So this overcompensation in your magical practice, in your meditations, in your visualizations, really just kind of puts the brakes. You're pushing on the gas and the brakes at the same time. You're going nowhere and you're burning out the engine. But You think you're doing really well because you're breaking a sweat. You think you're doing really well because you're putting all this effort into it. Magic flows like water. Um, the magical currents definitely can flow like water, but they can also be like the reflections on the water, almost like smoke and mirrors. Like you can feel the sun's heat dancing as the light refracts from the water. You can feel the shadows, the cool sensation of the shadows and shimmers. So magic can be very gossamer, it can be very light, it can be very soft, and you're experiencing it that way here. But in the other realm, it could be moving mountains. So a lot of people overcompensate when the lightest touch is all that's needed to create that domino or snowball effect. So a faint vision of your deity is enough. If it registered within your five senses, you've made the link, you've created the connection. You don't need more, but more may happen. So once the door is open, it's open. It doesn't really exactly fully close. With that knowledge, we now come to the most important part. Onyx, why are you talking about your inner temple? Why is this next level? Why is this inner circle knowledge? Why is this silent? Why is this the forbidden? Why is this the actual book of shadows? Why does this separate me from the wannabes to the real people holding the power? To this self knowledge, the inner initiation, the enlightenment, true gnosis. Because when we think this all happened during this weekend, we're still in the sign of Scorpio. And one of my really good friends was like, hey, my other friend would like to, she's very curious about you. She would like to do a medium reading for you and have you give her a reading and whatever. And I was like, let me think about it. Let me feel my way into it. And then I was like, the next day, I like to do a 3 day. My rule is 3 days. I'll feel and think about it off and on, kind of like get a sense. How do I feel about it today? How do I feel about it now? Why am I rejecting this? Why did I need to feel like I needed to think about it? Why was it not an immediate yes? So even though I think these things and I let that part of my brain go, I let that go and I just feel. I just put out my feelers into the universe, and go into receptive mode. And then a few days later, it was like, do you realize what you're doing? This person is just curious and they want to have fun and a good time. And they're actually at your expense. Who's paying the bill? You are. And then could you imagine if you just let someone into your mind for a psychic reading, or let someone near your deities or your ancestors or your spirits, your family line? Now, in the West, Western or modern culture really doesn't understand boundaries, doesn't understand personal space. And there's a lot of get into your business and get into your energy, and a lot of self gratification at the expense of others. And so this just kind of goes over your head. There's someone down the street offering psychic readings and you pay them at your expense. But once you've been initiated, once you're working with angels and demons and gods and aliens and elemental spirits, and once you're a shaman and you have portals, you have keys, you have roads that go to other realms. Is that person who wants to dive into your energy, will they survive it? What's in your client? What's in you? And I'm like, yeah, for their safety, it's a no, but for my safety, it's a no. So if your body is a temple if your aura is a temple, if you're spiritual, you then have to filter and you have to be the guard and say, if you enter this temple, you need to be clean and you need to be of accord. If a certain god or a goddess lives within you and the people around you don't value that deity, that type of energy, and what that brings to the world, they're not your tribe. Those are enemies. Like, an enemy is anyone working against you, anyone who is feeling triggered or alarmed or cannot process that frequency of you. No fault of their own, but magic isn't for fun and games. Psychic readings aren't for fun and games. Contacting ancestors aren't for fun and games. Getting what you want, being gratified through external experience of other people and other things of this world isn't really the point when you've gone down the road so far. Hence, solitary. Boundaries. So we'll drop a little bit more at the end of this. Like, we're coming up to that 33 minute mark where my phone likes to cut out. It only gives us that much time. Wrapping it up. When you're grounded, you feel the weight of your body and you've attached your energy with that. You feel the magnetism. You start to fill up your cup and bring back the purity, the knowledge, the wisdom. It all starts to flow back to you through your central core. All your power, all your knowledge, all your wisdom, now sitting in the silence, casts. Silence brings the void. Silence brings the emptiness. Silence is that all creation sound comes forth from the everything comes from the silence, everything comes from the stillness, everything comes from the nothing. You're basically going to that point. Everything that is hindering you from being in the silence must dissolve and disintegrate. Praise be the silence. Praise be the void. Praise be the stillness. Find your calm, find your peace. Your journey to your inner temple or back to center, and then within the temple, within its center, deeper and deeper, moving in layer by layer. The more you move in, the more you expand, the more you concentrate, the more you radiate. And so it's all one, a glowing sun within, the light within, the hermit, the lantern. Your psychic abilities automatically turn on because you now have the light within and the energy within. Healing naturally happens because you're bringing all of yourself back. So the only reason why your soul isn't with you is because you have so much identity tied up into that experience and the story and the beliefs. If you have some humility, you can sacrifice those old beliefs that no longer serve you. You can sacrifice the old version of you, the character, that pattern. You can sacrifice the story. You can delete it. You can, erase it. Get back to the present, where eternity is, where infinity is, where the I am is, where consciousness is, where the quantum level is, where all spirituality is, where you're going to get your uploads and your downloads, where you're going to evolve in the cauldron of your witch's brew. It's going to happen by mastering, working with your energy and your body to be present, to hold the space for you, to crystallize it, to then start monitoring, leaving things out that don't need to be there, or things that have come in that are now causing pain and suffering and disturbances, all signs that they don't need to be there. You can say thank you and goodbye. Thank you for these experiences of enlightenment. Without offering to do the reading, I would have never known that I am already whole and complete, that nothing this individual could give me would benefit me because the gods are already with me, because I'm already reconnected to myself. I'm already connected to the universe. My cup is full and overflowing. So, this is really key point. You know your battery is charged and you are now in a positive way full of yourself when you feel gratitude, when you see the world as a place that's flexible and moldable and colorful, uh, that has potential, that, hope returns, faith returns, divinity returns, you return. So the lack of self-esteem, all this fear and doubt and depression is because you have holes and you've left pieces of you scattered across the timelines. However you want to metaphorically see that, in the end, it doesn't matter. It comes down to being centered, holding space for yourself, and letting your natural magnetism of physicality and being centered combined with the will, clarified with your intention, you command the power back. You dissolve those shackles. You unearth the living angel in you, divine being closest to God. That's an angel. Doesn't have to have wings, doesn't have to subscribe to a narrative. That's just a symbol representation. For you, it might be a goddess or whatever it is, a magical unicorn. Free your inner unicorn. It could be that. Or your magical mushroom. I don't know. But it lives within you now, and you have freed it. And it deserves a clean body. It deserves a clean mind. It deserves healthy emotions. It deserves a sanctuary. And so a lot of your work can be very basic in wellness. Learn to take care of yourself. Stop taking in the toxins. Purify thyself, mind, body, and spirit in all three levels of reality. And your power, then you'll be in a new position. Because I am so powerful, full of my power, I can now afford forgiveness, compassion, wisdom, understanding. I can now be that higher version of me in the flesh. I now bless my friends with my presence. I bless my coworkers. I bless the earth with my presence, anchored in to my physical being. And the wisdom and the light I can use to discern what is healthy, what is not, what the truth behind that truth really is. I can see in, I can see out. I'm a clear mirror.